let me speak a little bit what you can expect from today till Thursday. So today we will be demystifying NFTs and scratch a little bit the surface on metaverse. Tomorrow we will take you on a journey to unpack decentralized finance. On Wednesday, I will have a heavy debate with our experts on how to enable safe and compliant crypto payments while using self-trace. And on the last day, Kamran and I will take a deep dive into central bank digital currency. So you can see this is a really packed agenda. I hope you are ready to spend with us the next 4 days and that we will bring a lot of exciting content. Our session will be run as a panel, all 4 of them. And so I would love to for you to put any statement, reactions, comments, emojis into the chat and questions, of course, which we can put towards the audience. So before I introduce the panelists, which are today here with me, I just want to share a little personal story around NFTs. One day, last October, my son Dante comes to me and says, he wants to know what is NFT, how does it work? Because one of his friends heard something on the radio and they want to debate it. So I started to explain to him, and then I suggested, you know what, if you create one and publish it, I will buy it of you. So within a couple of hours, the 2 boys created a MetaMask wallet, converted their school art into an NFT and published it on Mintable, and also created an Instagram account to promote it. So the listing price for the piece of NFT was $25 in a fiat currency. But with all gas fees, I paid about $115. So now, fast forward 7 months, my son, who is 11, published his 2 new collections. One is Happy Guitars and second is Hungry Hamsters, and it's $5,000. And he's teaching his 9-year-old brother how to do it. I think what I'm trying to say is that there are really some lessons into this story, right? Number one is, don't tell your 11-year-old son that you buy something from him if you don't agree on a price before, right? Second is the gas on Ethereum is an absolute killer. So, considering what do you use, it's really important. But lastly, what amazes me most is that creating, selling, and buying NFT is not so difficult as you might think and feel. So with that, I hope everybody is settled in their seat, and I would like to introduce our panelists today. So let me take you on a flight to Dublin first. So directly from Dublin, I have with me Keith Jordan. Keith is Vice President of Innovation for Labs, and he's working and flying and working around the whole world, delivering technology innovation for governments, merchants, banking partners. He leads a special operations team, if you imagine like a MIB from Men in Black, so that's Keith, that works across the bank of the future, reimagining retail banking, AR, VR, live streaming, and metaverse. He's really bringing, science fiction into reality and creates the new generation of financial services. But so there are some, interesting information about Keith as well. So he's an avid gamer. He is a massive Marvel collection. You can see it in the back. And he is also a Star Wars fanatic who happens to work in innovation and technology. And I would seriously recommend you to follow him on LinkedIn, because if you want somebody who curates really well information about metaverse, NFT, and much more, he's the guy. So it's great to have you with us, Keith. Let me just now take you to Dubai. We have two esteemed guests from Dubai. One is our digital asset guru, Kamran. And when you ask Kamran what actually his vision is, he would tell you he really tries to leverage the power of a blockchain technology and try to bring it into innovation for payments, which is not as easy as it seems, and that's obviously his purpose. He leads multiple initiatives here in our region: Crypto Power Card program, crypto acceptance, decentralized finance, central bank digital currencies, and much more. He really lives and breathes crypto and NFT, and in his free time, he's constantly on the hunt for the next Bored Ape Yacht Club NFT project, and secretly also mentoring my son. He does it for free. I don't need to pay him on any cryptocurrency. And last but not least, allow me to introduce to you Omar Sabaa, who joins us also from Dubai and who is a part of a global fintech team and enablers team. He's a big crypto, NFT, and blockchain metaverse enthusiast, strong background in payments. And what he really does is he's trying to look up for crypto startups and how they can partner with Mastercard and bring them into Mastercard program. And a fun fact about Omar, here in EEMEA, we have so-called CryptoPunk gang, which is a gang which brings together employees across EEMEA who are knowledgeable, passionate about NFT, metaverse, and blockchain. And Omar is the CEO of our CryptoPunk gang. So now, without further ado, let me start with you, Kamran. I think that there is always a burning question on people's mind. What is it? What is exactly NFT?
Well, it's a very simple question that has unfortunately been complicated due to the different ways in which I guess the media and a lot of people have been discussing it. So let me first tell everybody what it is not. So an NFT is not a JPEG. An NFT is not just a silly picture. It is not something that is there to destroy the environment or be a cash grab for anybody. I'll separate it into two parts, right? So the first thing that I think people need to understand is the definition of the term non-fungible, because that confused me for a good long time. So here's fungible versus non-fungible as easily as I can explain it, right? If I were to give anybody $10, okay, so I open up my wallet and there are 10 $10 bills inside my wallet, and I say, hey, you can have any one of these $10 bills. Would you care which one I gave to you? No. One $10 bill as good as another $10 bill. It is interchangeable. And that means it's fungible. So fungible is interchangeable. Okay. Now, imagine that I opened up a file and there are deeds to 10 different apartments across Dubai. Okay. And I say, hey, you can have any one of these that you want. Now, would you care which one I gave to you? Yeah, because one of them is an EEMEA apartment in Dubai Marina, and the other one is out in the middle of desert, somewhere, and it's a studio. So then you would care. The apartments are not interchangeable, so they are non-fungible, right? So non-fungible means unique. Okay. Now let's take that concept to tokens, right? So cryptocurrencies, which are basically assets which are tracked on the blockchain, like Bitcoin, Ethereum, they are considered to be fungible. Right? So like any currency, if I send you some Bitcoin, you don't care which specific Bitcoin I sent to you. You just care how much Bitcoin I sent to you, right? Okay. Now, there's another type of crypto token, which is a fungible crypto token, where every token has a unique identity. Okay. Now that we've got that base, let's define what NFTs are. NFTs, non-fungible tokens. Non-fungible tokens, for practical purposes, I want everyone on this call to think of them as transferable, verifiable, tamper-proof certificates of ownership. That is what they are. An NFT is a digital record on the blockchain that signifies ownership of something. Today, we're primarily seeing it used to signify ownership of pictures and digital artwork, but it can do a lot more than that, and we will discuss that.
Amazing. Thank you for bringing that base for everybody to understand. Which brings me to another question, Keith. There is so much of hype around NFTs, and people are also arguing that it has a lot of downside because there are negative environmental impact. There are big fraud incidents. We saw it with the recent one which happened with OpenSea, and also but people claim that there is a really lack of utility and real value. What are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, that's a great question, Andrea. So when we look at NFTs and obviously non-fungible tokens, and obviously Kamran gave a really, really brilliant breakdown of what they are. But what we're seeing out there is we're seeing massive transactions taking place in this space. So we're seeing transaction values soaring to around 20 to 25 billion in the last 12 months, which is absolutely huge. But it's leaving many people baffled as to why so much money is actually being spent on these items that don't physically exist. And anyone can view online for free. So people are kind of scratching their heads going, well, I can still see the asset, but who owns it? What's going on in the background, right? But NFTs are crypto assets that record the ownership of digital files. As Kamran said, it could be an image, it could be video, or it could be text. Anybody can create and mint these NFTs, and ownership of the token doesn't usually confer ownership actually of the underlying item. And that's where a lot of these scams are actually taking place. So we're seeing counterfeits, we're seeing all sorts of scams, we're seeing wash tradings. And really interestingly, we look at the US-based marketplace Cent, and they were the company that sold the first $1 million tweet from Jack Dorsey's NFT, which I believe was somebody offered only a few $1,000s only a couple of weeks ago.
$25. $25.
How much was it?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's quite a drop. But as of Feb 6 of this year, they've actually stopped people allowing, the buying, selling of NFTs on their marketplace because there's so many scams basically going on out there, okay? So the three main problems that we're seeing out there are people are selling unauthorized copies of other NFTs. People are making NFTs of content which doesn't belong to them, and people are selling sets of NFTs which actually resemble securities, which is really, really risky because once you start trading in these securities, it gets a little bit interesting to say the least. So we're starting to, as I said, see these issues. Okay. And what are we going to do to correct these or whatever else? And Kamran can probably talk around OpenSea as well. OpenSea had a big hack there as well. But again, the big problem on the OpenSea network is, again, it's all plagiarized content. So whilst people are selling this content, they don't own it, and people are unwittingly going in and buying it. And in some cases, when you actually look at the underlying contract actually on the transaction, you actually don't own anything. In some cases, the people that are selling these NFTs retain the rights to remint these NFTs and resell and essentially kind of rescam people. DeviantArt is a really cool website that showcases a lot of creator marketplace copy from graphic designers and audiovisual people from around the world. And they're having massive problems where all the artwork is being stolen from their marketplace and being resold as NFTs. So as a direct consequence of what's going on, DeviantArt are actually starting to scale back, on their marketplace. But very briefly, just to kind of summarize here, as with any class, we have to be very vigilant when it comes to NFTs. They're not well understood by the investing public. And with any new asset, there's always going to be scammers and frauds out there. That's human nature. We'll never get rid of that. But what we need to be really aware of is buying NFTs that people don't own, buying NFTs that transfer the ownership without the legal documentation, buying NFTs from online auction sites that orchestrate exit scams, pump and dumps. There's a lot of them going on at the moment. Buying NFTs that have royalty fees that funnels the proceeds back to the seller. Again, that's happening out there as well. So there's massive potential in issuing these assets, as Kamran said, on the blockchain. And it just so happens that the NFTs that we're seeing today are the first such applications and utility of these blockchains. The future of NFTs is going to go in many, many different directions, but it's going to go on beyond art ownership. Yes. I believe they're here to stay. They're not going to die out anytime soon, but we will start seeing smart utility and real world use cases of this tech.
So I think you scared the audience a little bit, Keith. So I hope we will not start to drop. But before, there are some interesting questions as well in the chat. But before we go there, you said the word real, and I think that's something which I want to ask Kamran. Kamran, I think it really flows nicely. What are some of the real life use cases and utilities where you think that NFT play our role today already, will play in the future maybe, but which makes them worthwhile?
Well, NFTs, like, again, if we go back to the concept, once we understand what they really are, right? And I'll just repeat that: transferable, verifiable, tamper-proof certificate of ownership, right? On a public record, which nobody can tamper or modify or anything like that. Now, what could you possibly use that for? Okay, let's have a little think. So some of the stuff that's already underway, already being developed, right, which we're seeing things come out about now. One of the first applications we're seeing is in the area of online gaming, right? So those of you who have kids who play Fortnite or Roblox or any one of these games that has in-game currencies and in-game items that your kids pester you to buy once every couple of weeks, those items typically can be used only within their games. You can use a Minecraft skin in Minecraft. You can use a Fortnite skin in Fortnite, right? And once the kids get bored of it, they ask you for more money because they want to buy the next skin. The skins they already have that they're bored with, nothing they can do with them, not transferable outside of Fortnite. We're seeing a new breed of games come up where those in-game items are being modeled as non-fungible tokens, which means that once your kids get bored of them, they can sell them on a secondary marketplace. In fact, being NFTs, which are, standardized objects, they can actually move from one game into another game as well. So you can buy a skin potentially and use it in Fortnite, use it in Minecraft, use it in a couple of other games as well. So those are some of the applications we're starting to see now, right? But then if you look towards the future, I think NFTs are one of those things that could disrupt several industries, right? Beginning with, think of things like iTunes, Amazon Music, right? All the music services you guys use today. When I die, am I going to be able to transfer my Amazon Music songs or the iTunes songs to my kids? No, right? If there's a band that I don't want to listen to anymore, can I sell off the songs that I own of those bands to somebody else? No, because all I'm really doing is renting the music from these platforms. It's tied to my unique ID and that's it, right? Now imagine that instead of that, I truly owned these pieces of digital music as non-fungible tokens, right? Then once I got tired of listening to a particular artist, I could sell that song to somebody else in the same way I used to be able to sell a physical record back in the day, right? If I wanted to transfer that or gift that to somebody, I could do that as well. And the person who owns the NFT has the right to basically listen to that song. And if you don't own the NFT, you will not listen to that song. So that kind of disruption is something that NFTs will bring. Keith mentioned the aspect of royalties. One of the things built into NFTs is that you, as the creator of an NFT, you can launch an NFT and sell it for whatever price you initially set, right? You can also set a royalty fee so that every time it is resold, you get a little percentage of the reselling price, right? This will enable artists, ebook authors, and other pieces of digital content creators to earn 100% of the art and the content that they create, rather than having Amazon or Apple or any one of these companies take 30, 40, 50% or whatever. Facebook recently announced that on Meta, they're going to keep 47.5% of whatever you sell, which has driven uproar in the community. So this is going to be the true democratization for content creators, right? And then think about it even further. An NFT will be your ticket into an event. An NFT will eventually be your passport, your card, everything, right? Something that you can store in a digital crypto wallet, and it unlocks a whole world of possibilities for you.
Amazing. So, Omar, Keith and Kamran spoke a lot about, the usability and where it is going. Let's bring it home a little bit. What are some of the obstacles and challenges today the buyers are facing, which need to be addressed going forward on the NFT experience and to make it more seamless?
Yeah. Thank you for that, Andrea. Actually, it's a great question. I think there's still a long way to go before the experience becomes really seamless for true mass adoption. I'm going to summarize it into really 4 pain points that, as a consumer, I've seen and I've dealt with, and the whole community has dealt with as well. The first being gas fees, which I'm really glad you brought up that story, with your son publishing his NFTs. It's really that scenario, happening over and over again. And that's, I think, what's putting off a lot of creators from going ahead and really adopting this concept of NFTs and starting to publish their art online, right? Even I thought, I'm not even a creator. I wouldn't call myself a creator, but I had this idea of a collection that, I thought would blow up, and I was just put off by how much gas fees I would end up paying for it. So, and just to give people an idea, exactly, like you could publish something for as little as $20, but then the gas fees would be about $70 on top of that. You'd end up paying, around $100 to publish something, while the actual price of it is about $20. So the first is definitely on gas fees. This is one of the main things, which is, again, being addressed right now with new technologies and with new blockchains. The second is on sustainability, which again ties back to the gas fees concept. The energy and the consumption that's needed to publish these NFTs on the blockchain today, it's very power intensive, and it's still giving NFTs that brand of not being environmentally friendly, having a negative impact on the environment. And of course, given how important this topic is today, that's again putting off a lot of consumers and stopping true adoption and true mass adoption. So that, I would say, would be the second pain point. The third would be on the purchase experience, actual purchase experience, right? So, and I'm coming here from a bit of a millennial perspective. We like everything to be, you could say we're very spoiled. We like everything to happen as soon as possible in as little steps as possible. And that's far from the case today when it comes to NFTs, right? To purchase an NFT is just to give people an experience. I need to purchase cryptocurrency from an exchange. I need to set up a third-party wallet, that is related to the blockchain where that NFT sits, whether that's Ethereum, whether that's Polygon, whether that's any other blockchain. So I need to set up that third-party wallet for it. I need to send that cryptocurrency to that wallet. I need to connect that wallet to the exchange or to the marketplace, sorry. And then I can actually do the bidding and purchase the NFT, which will have that gas fees on top of it. So just from talking about it, I think people are put off from buying NFTs, and no one's even gonna look at this after this call. So it's a really long process. There are solutions being developed right now. That Mastercard, for example, announced recently their partnership with Coinbase to try and address this and make it more seamless. But again, the journey still needs a lot of work to be done on it. So that would be the third, and then the final would be, I think, marketplaces and where I can actually buy these NFTs as the final thing. Today, it's very specific to a few marketplaces that are out there and very focused on, all of like the NFT market. But, if you think about brands, for example, setting up their own marketplaces, if, on the Adidas website where I go and buy my everyday, merchandise, I have another option of a marketplace that I can go and buy their NFTs that they're publishing. That again would, I think, speed up the mass adoption a little more. So I think those 4 main points, yeah.
You're raising some really interesting points, and it remind me of a story which actually the 3 of us were debating on the weekend, where I couldn't find a Polygon transaction, and we were trying to find out where is the transaction, how is it not visible on the network. And I think that's a couple of, I think, real pain points. That the user experience currently sucks. It's just really bad. And however, once it's fixed, I think the scalability might be bigger. Now, before I ask the next question, we have couple here in the chat. So the first one is a comment/question. So NFT will be basically a mix of immutable data on a blockchain coupled with a smart contract. Kamran, you want to take it?
At the most technical level, yes, absolutely.
Okay,
right?
perfect.
And the only thing I would add there is immutable data that has a unique identity. So it's a uniquely identifiable piece of data.
Great. There is a fun question inside as well. What NFTs are you guys currently holding? So Keith, let me start with you. What is it what you hold right now?
I have a couple of very, very, very cheap ones just for test and R&D purposes. I haven't uploaded my yearly salary into NFTs just yet. I'm waiting.
There is some comment. I think Marianne from the audience, that there is a number of interferences regarding the login of orders, that it interferes with the sound. If somebody can look into it, would be great. So Kamran, what NFT do you hold?
Okay, so before I answer that question, I'm going to introduce people to another confusing term, NFA. That means not financial advice. Okay, so having said that,
I love it.
Having said that, I'm holding a lot of NFTs at the moment across different blockchains. I am an NFT enthusiast. So once again, I look into projects because either I like the art or because I like what the creators are trying to do, not necessarily because I think that the project is going to get something in terms of financial transaction. So there are a couple of projects which are created by female creators, for example, Women from Venus, for example, is one example. Very nice project, very representative of women from all cultures, including Islamic culture. And they're really trying to use the proceeds from that to, for example, really go out there and empower more women across the world, especially in disenfranchised countries, to become creators. So I support that project simply because I think they're trying to do something really good. I find the Moonbirds project very, very interesting. I didn't get anywhere near it when it was launching, and it 1 week after launching, it's selling for something like 40 ETH at the moment. So of course I'm priced out of it, but I think Kevin Rose is doing some very interesting things. We Friends, launched by Gary Vee, is a very, very interesting and one of the earliest examples of real utility being associated with an NFT. Series 2 of We Friends is at the moment, I think, minting out, and that's another one which I'm following very closely. And then finally, one more that I'll mention, which I find really interesting, and the name is escaping me right now, right? I'll get that to you. It's a very interesting project where the NFT that you're buying is actually linked to an untrained AI, an untrained artificial intelligence.
That's fascinating.
You buy the NFT, okay, and the visual representation of the NFT is like this digital brain, but what's behind it is actually an AI. Now you can choose what to train the AI on, okay, and you can choose to train the AI to become really, really good at playing a certain game or navigating its way through a certain metaverse or finding discounts at multiple shops or whatever it is, right? You can train your AI that way. And then you can either use that AI yourself, attach that AI to, they're also building a second series of NFTs which represent avatars in the metaverse. You can attach a brain to an avatar and automate what the avatar is doing, right? So that is a really fascinating project and really pushing the boundaries of what the NFTs can do. And it's one I'm following very closely.
That's amazing. And the audience is asking for some of these names to be put into the chat. So Keith, Kamran, if you feel comfortable with that, and as Kamran said, this is NTA, so non-financial. And what was your acronym, Kamran, with non-financial advice? Non-financial advice.
NFA, not financial advice.
Amazing. So if you feel comfortable, please put it into the chat. Omar, what NFTs do you have in your wallet?
Look, to be honest with you, Andrea, I would consider myself more of a trader than an NFT holder. I don't really get married to any of the projects I look at, but I'm constantly on the lookout for, the hottest projects. So it's a lot of work, it's a lot of effort. You need to be constantly up to date with what's happening in the community. You need to, use some of these tools that are out there that, give you a rarity score on, how rare is this NFT, and you constantly need to look out for all of these topics to kind of look for that next hot project before you get into anything, right? There's a lot of scams, as Keith mentioned, out there. So you really need to be, careful what you're on top of. But personally, I'm a fan of sports. So I kind of look out for any sports related NFT projects.
Amazing. So as for me, I obviously hold the NFTs of my son. That's I think social responsibility, and then I am a big fan of Refik Hanadol, who is a Turkish artist living in California, and I think from that perspective he is definitely my favorite. Now, Kamran, I have one more for you. You mentioned the music and royalties, but there are some very practical as well use cases and application which are heading our space in terms of ownership of houses and cars. And what are some of the things which you see where NFTs now are becoming used and will be used in the next couple of years really a lot?
So no, that's also a very, very interesting point, right? So one of the first things that people started doing when blockchain applications for the enterprise started becoming popular was this concept of using blockchain to record ownership, right? And the problem over there was that people started coming up with their own standards for doing it. And that is why, although there was tremendous promise, we never really saw a lot of those promised applications where you trade real estate on the blockchain, you trade stocks on the blockchain, you trade your cars on the blockchain. We never saw it take off because you didn't have an open standard. NFTs now provide that open standard, and they allow you to access a whole host of marketplaces. So I think we're going to see real estate almost certainly, especially in markets like ours here in the UAE, where we're very, very looking ahead to new technology. So I think we're going to see eventually your, shall we say, real estate licenses become NFTs that can be traded back and forth with properly audited smart contracts that govern absolutely everything. And maybe, the royalties that we see in the art world could be maybe a slight piece that goes to Dubai land and a slight piece that goes to, you can easily code that in, to smart contracts. I think we'll start to see that. I think we'll start to see that in terms of cars as well, especially the second-hand car market, where you can start trading your sort of like cars as ownership as NFTs. And one of the interesting things about that is that not only can that incorporate the ownership of the vehicle itself, it can also attach to it the complete service and accident history of that as well. So all of those things which you currently have to do multiple things to check out before you buy a second-hand car, you could potentially have all sitting in one place. I think that would be very, very interesting. And the third area, which I think we'll start to see, is it's a category of things, right? Fractional ownership, which I think is extremely important. So you could take an apartment, a singular apartment, and issue 1,000 NFTs, where each NFT represents 1/1000th of ownership of that apartment. That allows people who typically did not have the capital to go and invest in the real estate market to invest on a smaller basis and still start building up that portfolio of riches, right? So I think we're going to see that. The last thing which I'll mention, there was a very interesting project in Africa some time back, which I think is still live, where they're actually setting up solar fields. And what they were doing before the advent of NFTs was basically representing each solar panel as a blockchain token. Now, it was a fungible token, but they were allowing you to buy and sell that. And that's how they were funding those projects and setting up these solar fields. And the people who bought that would get their share of the electricity tariffs. That lends itself very, very well to an NFT approach as well.
I love the practicality, but let me now take you to a different world. Obviously, all of you mentioned the word metaverse, and I just want to ask Keith, what defines metaverse, and how can you access it? I think that there's a lot mixed up about metaverse and NFTs and what's happening there. Can you just bring it a little bit alive?
Absolutely, Andrea. Thanks for the question. And I'm sitting here listening to Kamran going, oh man, this guy knows so much. Probably ask him the question. Very, very briefly, I think it's very good if our esteemed audience splits metaverse and NFTs, separates them, because they are not connected. They have utility. And they do have correlation, but they are, in my opinion, they are standalone opportunities. They don't rely on each other, and they can work independently. But just to take a little step back, what is a metaverse? Look, the metaverse is a massive buzzword that we're all hearing at the moment. Searches for metaverse on Google have increased something like 6,000%, in the past 12 months. So it's a white space that's absolutely exploding. But what is it? Are we talking about a dystopian nightmare? Is this a Matrix ripoff? What actually is it? Well, it's really quite simple, and there's a lot of buzz around it. But the metaverse is the next iteration of the web. So if we look at Web 1.0, which was late 90s, and I would kind of look at NFTs today as kind of early stage e-commerce in Web 1.0. Where trying to buy something online in the late 90s was really difficult. You had to start kind of bolting things together, go to this website, transact your payment over here. It was a very disparate experience. When we moved into Web 2 and we got to that one-click button with Amazon, for example, where I literally just did that and everything happened. That's where we have to get to with utility, specifically around NFTs. That experience has to be that simple. But when we start getting into that level of experience, it segues really nicely into the metaverse. And the metaverse is essentially going to be what I would say is the 3D web. And if you can imagine, going to a flat website today where I'm looking at text, I'm looking at images, or I'm looking at video content, when we move into the metaverse, we're actually going to have a Z-axis. We're going to be able to actually go deep into a web experience. We're going to be able to explore. So essentially what we're going to have is we're going to have persistent and immersive simulated worlds that are experienced in the first person, but simultaneous users can come in here and actually have a very, very social experience. But what does that mean? If we look at gaming, for example, this is really where the metaverse boom is coming from. And people are saying, is the metaverse here today? Is it going to be tomorrow? Well, it's already started. It's already been going on for many, many, many years. And if we go back to even, again, Web 1.0 in the late 90s, Second Life was probably one of the first big metaverses that we actually saw. So it's nothing new. It's already been there. And what's happening is this trend is essentially coming back around. But what's driving this trend is essentially the crossover between gaming, commerce, and cinema and kind of TV. And this is all being merged together to create this deep immersive experience where it's going to be heavily gamified, heavily social, but as I said, it's going to be very, very, very deep. And to give a case in point of what could this look like? If we look at Fortnite, for example, so Fortnite online world where people go and play that kind of like a shooting game. But what they're doing is they're doing in-game events inside Fortnite. But Fortnite is the first game that brought in loads of different IP. So what I love about Fortnite is you're standing in Fortnite, you've got Marvel IP, you've got DC IP, you've got all sorts of different types of creativity all being mashed up. And as I said, it was the first time we saw all different IP getting mashed, and then people were then driving this into avatars. So really interesting when you look at Fortnite. They released last week. They said that one particular avatar that they wouldn't say which one it was, but one particular avatar last year generated $55 million in sales. And that's just kids buying a digital ID to make themselves and make their persona look a little bit different in a digital world. So it's huge. But very briefly on this one, Travis Scott, who's a rapper, he did a physical tour across America in late 2019, and he did 60 tours from East Coast to West Coast. And again, took him 12 months to do it. He generated just over $50 million on that tour. A lot of money, really interesting, but then he had a lot of costs and expenses to come out of that. Fortnite approached him and said, look, would you like to do a live concert in Fortnite? And he said, yeah, great, we'll do it. So they sent him some hardware, and he did motion capture literally from his living room in his house in Texas. And he did 4 half-hour events across 2 days. Now, the highest rated TV show in America is Monday Night Football. That only hits about 12 to 14 million concurrent users. But when you look at Fortnite and what Travis Scott did, he was hitting 30 million concurrent viewers across each of his shows. So already he was doubling the TV usage on Monday Night Football. But after a month, when they looked at the stats, he had reached 400 million people doing his concerts across that weekend. But he generated $25 million in merchandise sales from doing those 4 half-hour concerts. So very quickly, we can see by dropping into a digital world with an immersive experience, you can generate massive expenditures. There's already economy rails already sitting in here, and there's massive demand from Generation Z for these gamified experiences, and that demand is increasing. Fortnite are a really, really interesting game, but if we take a step back and look at Epic have a game engine that is essentially, in my opinion, going to be a content management system for the metaverse. And keep a very, very close eye on what Epic are doing, because they're making some really interesting moves. The last one on this, and then I'll shut up, is the Lego Group have just invested just under $1 billion in Epic. And they're now going to co-create the metaverse world for Lego for kids. And they're going to drive literally, I'd say, about 1 billion kids into that metaverse. The ultimate vision for metaverse is interoperability, where you can basically glide between these different universes seamlessly. But that is not going to be the case early days. It's going to be siloed metaverses that people will jump into. The interoperability will come, but that could be 5 years plus down the road. So what we will see early days is siloed metaverse opportunities for very distinct cohorts to drive social and economic experiences in 3D worlds.
That's really fascinating, Keith. And I just want to follow up on that a little bit with Kamran, because Kamran, you already mentioned, the multiple use cases of NFTs, right? The practical, the art, the ownership of houses, the tickets to events. But if you look at these massive investments which are going into different types of metaverse, and I would go to the Travis Scott concert, what does it mean for retail? What does it mean for, how will be the relationship between the NFTs into metaverse? How would I hold it? And the great example Keith just mentioned with Lego, where the kids will be going in. What role will the NFTs play in the metaverse, besides of what you already touched on?
So that's going to be a very, very interesting thing to keep an eye on, right? So, as Keith described very, very accurately, NFT, these metaverses are the evolution of the web. In fact, one of the ways that I've heard it described as Web 1 was that you read content, right? Web 2 was you create content, and Web 3, which is metaverse, is you own your content, right? So this is sort of what the evolution is about. Now, in these metaverses, more and more people are going to start visualizing their digital identities, right? And whereas probably people from my age group are not really so much into that concept, people from my son's age groups, as we can see from Fortnite, they're very, very concerned about how their digital avatars look as they walk through these worlds to experience them. Now they're doing it in the context of games today, but we're seeing other types of things sprout up. There's a NFT metaverse project called the Sandbox, for example, where a number of very prominent players have bought up these plots of virtual land, and these plots of virtual land are available as NFTs. So you have Snoop Dogg has bought up a huge plot of land over there where he is hiring virtual sort of like 3D architects to build these kinds of shopping places and these kinds of virtual places where you can go in and experience music and things like that. Doesn't have to obey the laws of gravity anymore because you're in a completely, you're in the matrix basically when you're walking in there, right? So as people start to experience these things more and more, and the younger generation is very, very attuned towards this, they will be very, very concerned about how they look. They will be very, very concerned about digital objects. Each one of those things, the clothes I wear, the skin I have at the moment, the objects I'm carrying around with me, all of those digital objects, just like in-game objects in a game, will be digital objects in the metaverse. And I will want to buy, sell them. And that becomes NFTs. And there will be NFT based stores in metaverses where I can walk in. And Adidas is already working on this, by the way. I designed my first Adidas avatar yesterday, and I'm on their wait list now. Fingers crossed I get in. Let's see. But basically, Adidas has already created a set of digital items, digital jackets, digital shoes, things like that. And Adidas is building a metaverse. So when you go into that metaverse, when it launches, it will be your Adidas avatar wearing digital versions of Adidas merchandise, right? Which Adidas will sell as NFTs. So that's
and I really
just on that, Andrea. Can I just add to that very briefly?
Yeah, of course.
Sorry to cut across you.
Okay.
I think a really good distinction is you will buy things for the metaverse and you will buy things from the metaverse. And what we're going to see is we're going to start seeing NFTs are essentially going to be the anchor between the physical and the real world. NFTs will be used to digitize physical goods that will turn into digital goods in the metaverse. So for example, when I walk, as Kamran said, into an Adidas store and I buy the latest pair of Adidas trainers, I will automatically have an NFT that I can take that and dress my avatar with that clothing I've just bought in the physical world, and vice versa. So in the very, very near future, my journey as a consumer may start in the digital world and bleed into the physical, or I may start in the physical world and bleed into the digital. And when we look at Generation Z, they see no distinction, as Kamran said. In fact, their digital persona is actually nearly more important than their physical persona. And you can see that with your own kids, Andrea, with, you know, as I said, they're buying these avatars. But what we're also seeing as well is kids that are buying these avatars, they're also gender fluid as well. They're IP fluid, they're time and space fluid. It's this evolution that's coming is going to be really, really, really interesting to see. And then just a very, very kind of last point. And if you look at that Lego one, for example, right, that's really interesting. So when I buy a piece of Lego in a toy store, I'm going to get NFT access, which is going to give me an even more enhanced experience in that metaverse. But what I can do is when I'm wearing smart glasses, for example, I can walk out into a field or into my back garden, and using my smart glasses, I can now actually start building Lego in life-size scale. So imagine building a house in Lego, but imagine doing that maybe in a field with 10 of my friends, and that becomes now a shared experience where we're building, you know, the Burj out of Lego at life scale, and we're building all the interiors, we're gamifying it. But what we could do is we could put an economic rail in there, charge other people access to see what we've created, you know, start putting, you know, virtual tourism in my local park. It's going to be crazy what we're going to see. New economics, new ways of doing work, new ways of socializing, new ways of playing. It's going to be crazy.
I have to say, you know, you stole my line when I wanted to make an example that I can imagine walking into a physical store and having the same immediately in a digital version. I think that that's the way how the user experience will be both ways, as you said, physical to digital, digital to physical. That there is a huge opportunity for obviously retailers. And there are great questions which I will take just now, but I want to ask Omar, you know, we obviously and Keith, you make us very hungry now to try things out, right? Omar, if I want to try things out today and I go and buy Oculus, you know, VR glasses from Virgin Megastore, where can I actually get an understanding how does this operate? Is there a place which you could, you know, we can recommend to the audience to go and try it?
Yeah, Andrea. So I think in terms of what it looks like today, so I think definitely Kamran, Keith touched on some great points on the interoperability piece, and I think, like Keith mentioned, like we've all experienced the metaverse to an extent as of today, right? Whether it was Fortnite, whether it was any other virtual world that you kind of got involved in, or you know managed to play or do some sort of activity in, you've interacted with the metaverse. Now, I think the goal is really, and the mission and the vision that most of these companies are working on, is to make the experience more immersive, right? They want to take it a step further basically than just a screen, and me interacting with it through my mouse and my keyboard, and the traditional way of interacting with it. They want to make the experience more immersive. So that's where the VR piece is coming in. That's where the AR piece is coming in. There's a lot of work being done with them. If you go to some of the shopping malls today, I think Mall of the Emirates, you can see the VR experience that's over there, and that's giving you a sense of how VR looks like, and it already exists, as I mentioned. It's just going to tie in with all of these concepts that we spoke about, such as NFTs, such as the interoperability and all of these concepts. But if you want to get a sense, I think, of what it looks like today, and instead of going and purchasing your VR glasses, and you just want something quickly to get a feel of it, I think Kamran mentioned a great example of Sandbox. One of the industries that's really bringing this to life is the gaming, I think, industry, and a couple of companies there are doing a great job, such as Sandbox, such as Decentraland. That's where you can go and see what this virtual world that everyone's speaking about potentially looks like.